Was Hopper forced into a lobotomy? Are the Russians building a tunnel to the Upside Down? And what do Stranger Things and the Demogorgon have to do with Chernobyl? Spoiler, they might have a lot of things in common. Hi, I'm Tim, and you're watching Awesome Movies. The Transfer of Powers. Have you ever wondered where Eleven's powers went to? We bet you did. And some fans have a crazy theory that her powers didn't just disappear, they were transferred to none other than Chief Hopper. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to survive the explosion, right? The fan theory goes that when Elle lost her powers, Hopper somehow received them, probably because of the reactor blast. The powers enabled him to go to the Upside Down before the explosion. But as the gate was closed by Joyce, Hopper had to find another way out, which happened to be in Russia. At the end of Stranger Things Season 3, we find out that the Russians feed their prisoners to a Demogorgon, but not the American. Perhaps he's too valuable as a person, and just like Eleven, can walk through the Upside Down. Also, there's yet another theory of how Elle's adoptive father could have survived. Gaining mysterious powers because of some technological catastrophe is reminiscent of a classic superhero origin story, and we already know that the Duffer Brothers like these stories. So we might very well have a character with psychic abilities in Season 4, even if it's not Elle. Moreover, some fans predict that Hopper was brainwashed by the Russians, or his memory has been wiped through a lobotomy. Well, a brain surgery totally explains his shaved head. And with his memories erased and his new superpowers, Hopper might even turn against Eleven and her friends. However, his memories could be restored when he sees Elle again. By the way, this totally makes sense when we looked at the leaked episode list of the upcoming season of Stranger Things. It hints that most of the cast will be separated for the entire season. Fortunately, it also reveals that they will reunite in Episode 8, titled Together Again. We hope that it will include both the teenage gang and Hopper. And the same leak tells us that there will be 9 episodes in Season 4 of Stranger Things. Dark Phoenix Theory. According to the Stranger Things writers' Twitter account, the title of the first episode, written by series creators Ross and Matt Duffer, is the Hellfire Club. It definitely looks like a reference to the X-Men comics. As you might remember, the Hellfire Club was an enemy of the X-Men from the classic Uncanny X-Men comic book series and Dark Phoenix saga. So, is it a hint to the future events, or just another pop culture reference that Stranger Things is famous for? It's not the first time Stranger Things has been inspired by the X-Men comics. Remember in Season 3, Dustin called his radio transmitter Cerebro, just like a machine used by Charles Xavier to detect mutants all over the world. But there were more subtle and at the same time more direct references to the X-Men too. In the very first episode, Will wanted to get Dustin's copy of X-Men issue 134 if he won a bike race home. And in episode 3, Dustin suggested that Eleven could be a mutant. Indeed, Elle's powers are similar to those of Jean Grey, a mutant, later known as the Dark Phoenix. In the comics, the members of the Hellfire Club have manipulated Jean Grey into unleashing her destructive side. And a psychic named Mastermind, who could cast convincing illusions, tricked Jean into betraying her friends the X-Men. Doesn't that remind you of something? Exactly! Eleven's lab sister Kali is able to cast illusions, and she's part of a misfit street gang. Also, Kali leads a kind of vendetta against the people who experimented on her in the Hawkins laboratory. Maybe this storyline, that dropped off so abruptly, will finally continue in Season 4. Is it possible that Kali could cause Eleven to turn against her friends, just like Jean Grey did? But another interpretation of the title of the first episode suggests that the club is a real thing. It could refer to some new characters who live in the city where the Byers moved to. And they could be totally into comics, just like the boys from Hawkins are into Dungeons & Dragons. We'll find out for certain only after the 4th season of Stranger Things airs. A railroad to the Upside Down. In the second teaser trailer, we see Chief Hopper among the rugged workers at a place that looks like a Soviet labor camp. And it looks like the prisoners are building a railroad. The series creators have previously revealed that Chief Hopper will face dangers both human and other. So there is a fan theory that this railroad leads to the Upside Down. Cause where else do we find all those terrifying things, like Demogorgons and the Mind Flayer? It's quite possible that the Russians are using Hopper, who has mysteriously crossed half the planet, to build the new gate to the Upside Down. Remember, it's the mid-80s, and the Cold War period is not over yet, so the Soviets might regard access to another dimension as even more important than having a nuclear weapon. And speaking of nuclear weapons, the Chernobyl theory. The first 3 seasons of Stranger Things were set in 1983, 84, and 85, so we expect the events of the 4th season to be set in 1986. And unfortunately, in April 1986, there was a nuclear disaster at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. What if that wasn't a nuclear blast at all, but the result of the Soviet experiments with the Upside Down? Well, yes, thanks to the Chernobyl miniseries, we all know that this place is certainly not located in Siberia. But it's still quite possible that the experiments with the other dimension could somehow influence the flow of energy in our world and mess up the operation of this infamous nuclear plant. A more simple version of this theory is that the Soviets will use the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl as a cover-up for their attempts to explore the deadly world of the Upside Down, or a battle with 11. Why not? Do you have a theory on what we'll see in the 4th season of Stranger Things? Don't be shy to share them with us in the comments below. And thank you for staying with Awesome Movies.